Yes, it's time for another episode of Waterproof Records. And even more importantly, it's time for an episode with a guest. Yes, I am thrilled to welcome today's guest on the show. So let's not waste any time. Let's get that theme song. Let's jump in and we'll do all the stuff that we got to do so we can get right to the good stuff and welcome our guest. So it is time to welcome to Waterproof Records, Vinnie Dombroski from Sponge. Let's go.
Things are going to change. I can feel it.
If this going to be that kind of party, I'm going
Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records. Waterproof Records with Jacob Gibbons.
I think I got to improve the theme song. I think the problem is I wrote that so early on in the show that it sounds so much quieter than just my voice even. You know what I mean? I feel like I got to get a full band and go into the studio and re-record the theme song. When will I have time for that? But before we get into our guest today, which I'm excited to get to, I do want to tell you about DistroKid. DistroKid is the sponsor of the show, and I have a special link. It is distrokid.com/VIP because, yes, that's what you are, VIP/waterproof. And that gets you 30% off your first year. That is an amazing amount of savings for you to upload your music and share it with the world like that. I think I do that a lot when I talk about DistroKid. I snap my fingers. That should be like my commercial for them. But it's a great platform. They have an app that you can use. You upload your music and it's everywhere at once. And you can track, see how it's doing, how many streams it's getting, follow the money, whatever your profits are, split it amongst the other artists that you're working with. You can send it to your drummer, send it to your bass player, send it to your xylophone player. There's not enough xylophone or a hurdy-gurdy maybe. But DistroKid is definitely the service that you want to use to get your stuff out there. So make sure you check out distrokid.com/VIP/waterproof and get that 30% off. It's my special link. I put it in the subject of every episode. It's on my link tree. So go check it out. But now it's time to get to our guest, and I am so happy that I get to welcome this gentleman onto the show today. Vinnie Dombroski is the lead singer and primary songwriter and frontman of the band Sponge. You will remember Sponge primarily because of my 90s love. You will know the song Plowed or Molly, 16 Candles, or Wax Ecstatic. And Sponge has continued to put out a ton of more music, and you should definitely check it out. It's all great, and I am so thrilled to welcome on our show today, Vinnie Dombroski. So let's get down to it. Welcome to Waterproof Records, Vinnie Dombroski, the legendary frontman of the band Sponge, and so many other projects that I'd love to talk about here on the show today. But first and foremost, welcome. Happy to have you here.
Well, it's great to see you, Jacob. Great to talk to you. Thanks for the invite. It took a little while to get it navigated, but we're here.
Yes. I'm finding that the crazy convenience of being able to do a Zoom interview is you can have it happen pretty much any time, but that still factors in. We've got to stop our fast-paced lives, sit down, and talk to each other across a computer monitor, and that still takes some arranging. So I'm happy we finally made it happen, and I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm stoked to meet you, and I got a chance to see you play. I was at the Pappy and Harriet's show when you played with Everclear.
Whoa, what a night that was. I mean, and
so
what
fun.
What a room, man. Like, do you often go to Pappy and Harriet's?
That was my first time. It was my first time.
And you know what? I mean, what a great place. They treated us so cool. But I keep tabs on the bands they got coming through, man. And they got some great bands.
They do. They really, really do. For those listening who aren't familiar with Pappy and Harriet's, I don't have a huge background on how it all began, but it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's in the desert. It's like an old saloon. And it's this place that you really have to trek out there to get to. But just like Vinnie said, they have just incredible bands come and play in this location. It's so intimate. You're so close together. The shots that I have of you on stage, you're right there. You're right there singing. You're so close. And you're packed on top of each other. And you walk outside and it's just desert. So it's a really cool experience to play there. And you guys did great that night. I thought it was an awesome show. Great energy. And it was a really cool first experience at Pappy and Harriet's.
Oh, my God. And, of course, the owners over there at Pappy and Harriet's, we got the background on the room. And I think they've had the room not too many years. That much I don't know about. What I do know about is it used to be a movie set.
Really?
For Western movies back in the 40s. And there was a Pappy and Harriet. They bought it and turned it into like a saloon. And I heard it was like a legendary biker bar until the current owners have it. So Pappy, I guess Pappy would sing. Maybe Harriet sang too. But they had the place for some time. And it was like a biker bar that turned into like a great rock club, And of course, when we played out there with Everclear, that night, I believe, was it Adam and the Ants were going to play that night, or the last time we played there?
Yeah.
But Adam Ant canceled the show, and it would have been a big thrill for us because I'm a huge Adam Ant fan, and unfortunately he canceled. But what a killer venue!
What a killer venue, and so cool to see you guys play. I hadn't had the chance to see you play live. Growing up, I grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and so bands would occasionally cruise through my town, but I wouldn't always be so lucky in that area. So I don't know if Sponge made its way through Tulsa in the '90s, and I just missed you.
I wasn't very lucky in Tulsa.
Oh yeah. Well, yeah. Well, you could tell me if it was a good experience or not. But
we can talk about that.
Yeah. Yes. You're Detroit, Michigan, and is that where you were born?
Absolutely. Yeah. In Detroit, and grew up on the east side of Detroit. I'm a product of the Detroit public school system. I hung in there for a long time. I raised my family in Detroit.
Yeah.
And eventually I had to tap out, man. It just got too wild. So, I 8 miles like the divider line, right? I made the 8 Mile, and now I made it to just south of 9 Mile. So I kind of 8 Mile and moved across 8 Mile line.
Yeah.
And these are pretty cool here. So
yeah. Well, that's a great town and a great city for music. Obviously, that. You had a lot that could inspire you growing up, the bands coming out of the Detroit music scene. And in my research of you, I saw that you were playing music live by the time you were 13 years old. You were playing in, bands when you were 13. True?
Well, yeah. We try to get into some of the local festivals, but we managed to sneak our way into bars too. So it was just a duo, me and my he played guitar, I played drums at the time, man, and we were just out there with no bass player, doing a lot of instrumentals and stuff like that. But you get out there. Detroit is such a great place. You don't have to make like cover bands. You can go out there and be a band that writes their own songs, and the scene supports that. It always did. So it was always cool to go out and write your own tunes early on and try to make something of yourself.
Yeah. Were your parents supportive of the music pursuits?
Well, my dad, he played music for a number of years, but, I don't think they were necessarily for it. They weren't necessarily against it. They just put up with it. So, yeah.
Yeah. A lot of music in your household as a kid, playing records and stuff in the house, or did you have to seek that out on your own?
No, my older sister would bring all the records into the house. You know what I mean? Bob Seger, Live Bullet, Peter Frampton Comes Alive, Journey, that I don't know how that happened, but she brought the Journey records in, brought the Bowie record in, but it was like the $1 Billion Baby Alice Cooper records with the old $1 Billion Baby Alice Cooper era band. That stuff was just like stunning, and of course, really started to set us on the path that we got on. Yeah. Since we're there, it kind of comes up organically on the show when I ask the question about the waterproof record. But before me and Vinny scheduled this, I always ask my guests, I say, okay, what's that life-changing record? And what's the thing that when I first started the show, it was about, if you were a musician, it was the thing that drove you to maybe pick up the instrument. But I've had people on the show that aren't necessarily playing an instrument. They're just in the music business or a performer. And so I kind of had to tweak the question, because it had to be that album that you go, I'm at a party and somebody says, what's that life-changing? What's that album that you just go, my life wouldn't be the same without this album. And you told me it was... Well, it was Diamond Dogs, David Bowie, yeah.
Yes. And a great choice. Great choice. So tell me a little bit about, was this a record that sister had brought home and it found its way on your turntable and you were like, what is this?
Well, the record made it into the house, but the record became so interesting to me because my mother saw the cover and she was like, this record has to leave this house. It it's like when my mom was so disturbed of the cover. I mean, it's a, we got to talk about like the packaging back in the day of a record album, which was this, you got this album, and it's hard to describe to somebody who's never held onto a vinyl record and the cover of the record. You open this record up, and of course it's got Bowie on the cover, and you flip around the back of the record. The front of him is like a man, and the back of him is basically a dog,
Right.
And my mom saw that, and she goes, "This is way too freaky, man." So she's like, "Get this thing out of here." And of course, when you played the music, it was just completely otherworldly. You look at the album cover, you listen to what's going on this record, and you go, "This is not," I can see Meet the Beatles back there in the background.
Yep.
This is kind of the early stuff that we were just kids listening to. And I think the Beatles, when they were dressed in leather and they were playing in Germany, they were just a fantastic band. They looked great. Maybe they wanted to be too much like Elvis and Roy Orbison, but that was that. And then when Bowie showed up, or Alice Cooper showed up, you're just like, this is taking us in a whole different direction, man. So it was very exciting at that time.
Yeah, and I'm no stranger to, my parents, my mom in particular, really would watch the music I was bringing home, the cassette tapes, the albums, the CDs, and she would look at the cover. She would make us go through the lyrics, and she just would flip out over anything that was weird or freaky or it seemed evil or, some naked body on it. She'd flip out. So it was always an interesting thing when these artists would create these album covers. And I would imagine David Bowie, when he was coming along, he was really pushing the boundaries of, what it meant to be a frontman and a performer. And what a cool album, amazing album. Most people probably know it for Rebel Rebel, which is the biggest song off that album. But there's so many other great pieces of music on it. And did that drive you to want to start playing drums and playing guitar? Did you hear that album and be like, man, I got to pick up an instrument right now?
Oh, we were playing certainly prior to that. We love to write songs. It's a weird thing. It was always like writing songs. So guitar was the first thing I had, I could recall picking up, but then I moved into drums, but it was always about writing songs. And, it's funny too. And this is probably not worked so well for me. Like Rebel Rebel was the radio song from that record. 1984 got some radio play, but, it was just like, Sweet Things like that. I mean, that kind of stuff. When I heard that, I was just out of my mind. And it wasn't like the way the songs ran together to make one kind of big long song. I was more interested in that. That was kind of like where I was at, or We Are the Dead. I'm like,
yeah.
And I don't even know why that was important at that time. I didn't understand exactly where he was coming from or why he was doing what he did. But you begin to read into it and you understand, why Lou Reed was so important. Or you start to do research and you go, well, then there was Iggy Pop. And, we always knew about Iggy Pop being from Ypsilanti or Detroit. And, we were kids, you always heard like, Be Your Dog or 1969. You were all up about that and the MC5. But it's just this whole thing, where that record really jumped for me was when I finally began to research and understand how important like Lou Reed was and Iggy Pop was. That started to kind of like cement where I was going at that time. I was just very interested in that direction. I couldn't even tell you why I was interested. And when you throw William Burroughs into the mix, then it all becomes, clear to me. The confusion becomes clear.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I'd expect nothing less from a musician and a music lover to have this album and really dig in deeper to the lesser known songs, the songs that aren't getting as much attention, learning the fuller story. That is what's so fun about being so passionate about art and music and seeing what's behind the songs and how what's inspiring Bowie and what's inspiring that work and taking it further. And so, of course, that drives you. You love to write and play music. And I didn't know that before Sponge begins, you're in this band Loud House and you're on the drums. You're the drummer of Loud House.
Yep.
That's what all began there.
And it was just nothing but fun. I hadn't seen the perform. We did a performance from it was 1991, State Theater in Detroit. I think it had something to do with the MC5. But the point is, after all these years, I saw the film performance of it, and it really took me back to why it was we did what we did. Everything seemed like an art project. And again, I'm not the rebel guy. I'm the guy that's going, I'm into all that other stuff. And certainly Loud House seemed more of an art project than anything. And we were big fans of William Burroughs at that time. And we were so freaked out by Burroughs, like the singer at that, we wrote together, but the singer in that group was very into the cut up method, and we were interested in Burroughs' work. And, we were just nuts about Burroughs to the extent of painting shoes. And it was always something about Burroughs looking down at his shoes or some crap like that, so we sent him crazy. We put some shoes in the mail to send to William Burroughs,
Wow.
So it was always interesting to me, the direction of that particular group. And it's unfortunate. I do believe that we finished our second record before the singer Kenny left the band. We got dropped from Virgin after one record, but we would have had no problem getting another deal with that band. Obviously there would have been no Sponge, but if the singer hung in there, I just believe from what we were doing and how much we believed at that time, we would have been fine. Would have been no problem. So the band was so much fun. I just have nothing but great memories about the band because we did what we wanted to do. It wasn't like, again, we got to make some hit song. It was like, are you having fun? Are you freaking out? And that was it.
Yeah. So it's bittersweet because, we wouldn't have Sponge if Loud House had gone on, so we needed to have Sponge. But that, for my listeners who don't know, Loud House even landed a cover of Smoke on the Water on the Point Break soundtrack, which was cool exposure. So yeah, I think you were on that path. I think that band was headed a certain direction, but it had to come apart, and then Sponge was born, and that was around 1992 that Sponge forms.
About 1992. Yep.
92. And, this has been a band, a project that you've been involved with since the very beginning and carry on to this today. And you just released your 9th studio album in 2021, which is just phenomenal. So still kicking ass after all these years. I love it.
Yeah. And, we've been fortunate. We've had some, indie labels step up to help us release records, but whether we had the help or not, we still play gigs. We know how to do this. The guys in the band, Andy, Tim, Kyle, and Dave, all these guys, they're such great dudes, great musicians. It's always come from the right place. I've been working with Andy, my guitar player. He was running sound for Loud House back in the day. He was probably 18 years old or something, man. It was just like, we've been doing this together for, 30 plus years, and they got no problem getting in the van. We can drive 12 hours in any direction, point it out, and we can throw and go, set up and play a gig and kick ass and not phone it in. So, hats off to the guys for still making it possible to do all this stuff, man. It's just an amazing thing. So I feel very fortunate, very fortunate that they're on board and we can still, make records. And we're just finishing up a record for Cleopatra right now, the label Cleopatra. Mm-hmm. And after that, we're going to put together like a 30th anniversary album, which is a bunch of unreleased stuff from back in 1992, 93. And we're going to include some new songs as well. We just recorded a couple new things. So, we're still knocking it out.
That's great. Being surrounded by good friends, people that you can count on, trustworthy people. Growing up in Detroit and in the music scene there, you probably had to find, because from what I've understood, it was a little bit of a competitive music scene at the time where you had to look out for yourself. So finding such an amazing group of people that you've been doing this with since the beginning, you really found the gold, the community that you could surround yourself with.
Yeah, and certainly there's some hiccups along the way.
Sure.
You fall into some situations where you're with groups of people that probably is not the best thing for you.
Sure.
And that was the early stuff, like we were well versed in the awful seedy bottom of rock and roll way before we had a record deal, put in front of us, and that underbelly is just weird, but that's Detroit too, you're exposed to things in the city of Detroit that maybe most folks aren't exposed to. But we were there, and that city was a great place to be creative, a great place to do whatever you wanted, whether it was like good stuff or bad stuff. And you let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah. Well, I'm thrilled that you rose up from that and created such great music. And this really begins, the world gets to hear from Sponge when Rotting Piñata, your debut album of this band, comes out, and you have, really, really big songs come off this album, Plowed and Molly. And but I believe that when the first album came out, there was a different direction on the first single that was going to come out. Could you talk a little bit about like the change from, it was originally going to be Nina Menashe and then it ended up switching over to Plowed?
Yeah. Well, I think it was a good idea to lead with Nina Menashe, a strong song, but I think they did a radio edit of it as well. But
it is a great song. That is a rocker right there.
Oh, it's crushing,
Yeah.
I mean, they made a video as well, and I go that I feel the label had some intention of working it to radio, but to lead out of the gate with a song like Plowed, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure it would have been the wise thing to do. Saturday Night with Nina made a lot of sense to me, and a great song in its own right.
It is. It is. It's a great album. It's start to finish. There's so many good songs in this album, and it of course contains the lost art of the hidden track. This is something that we just don't get to do anymore. But there was a time when I was a teenager in the 90s, and you were so excited when you would discover a hidden track on an album. And sure enough, there is a hidden track on this, Candy Corn. And so, and then I think that you really have Candy Corn kind of trademarked in a way. When I see Candy Corn, I think a Sponge. It's like a symbol of it. I think you used there was a release recently about the hits, and there's Candy Corn on that as well. So it's like, well, was there any creative decision behind that of including that and the hidden track being called Candy Corn?
Brother, it's such a great question, and it's something that we don't get asked very often. My son, who he's 14, my kid loves all the 90s stuff. And I don't really think it's because of me. It's like he plays bass like a madman. He's way into Metallica. I mean, obviously the Cliff Burton stuff was the 80s, Metallica, 90s.
Sure.
But he loves Alice in Chains. Like, he'll sit and he'll play bass to all the stuff, and he's 14, but he just nails it. And I just go, wow, don't you have any bands like from your era? And he goes, no, he just doesn't dig it. But my son, he asked me one day, he goes, what's up with the Candy Corn song? Like, why is that there? And I told him we were finishing up the album. Like, I mean, everything is pretty much done. And Mike, God rest his soul, Mike Cross, comes to the studio and he says, I got this riff, I got this tune. Can we, can I show you the riff? Can we bring it to the band? Can we track it? And I go, well, yeah, sure. So he knocks out this tune, and I go, well, this is cool. I go, what's the name of the song? And it was that time of year where the leaves are falling. He goes, it's called The Leaves Are Turning Brown. And I'm like, leaves are turning brown. I'm thinking to myself, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Let it fly.
Go, what the fuck is that? The leaves are turning brown. Of course they are.
The most obvious song title, right?
All kinds of colors, man. But I go, Mike, I just don't know. Like, I'm trying to vibe with this thing, right? So anyway, we're having a couple drinks in the studio, and back then we recorded to reel tape, right? Yeah. And we're just freaking out, and we get the idea: slow the tape down. Just take the track that the band cut with the complete bass. There's no vocals, guitar and drums, and slow the tape down.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, when they slowed the tape down, it was like do 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 boom 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 boom. It was this whole thing. It was like the Cocteau Twins or something, man.
Totally. What a spacey tune.
I lost my mind. And somebody brought candy corn into the studio, and it was just boom, immediate. This song is gonna be like, this is called Candy Corn, and we're gonna freak out, man. So it was just a freak out, and it was so fun, and the music turned so cool. It was not like anything else on the record. So it was time to just go, where do we put this, man? And it's almost like, the throwback of the mystery tune, the hidden track. Let's do that, and it was so perfect for that. And once in a while we play it live, but it turned something that was like maybe very right up the middle to something that was just like, let's just freak out. And it just turned into this beautiful thing. And so it's really, it turned into a great thing. And I'm glad it was welcomed by the band, and it's on the record. It's just so cool.
I love that. What a great story. And Mike, R.I.P. Good thing you weren't naming all the songs, because the Leaves Are Brown that wasn't your that wasn't your gift, my friend. So
I'm not sure I could write a melody to The Leaves Are Turning Brown. That would be good. So
yeah. Well, that's a great story. And so, did that influence the cover of Rotting Piñata, the having the candy corn in the image?
Yeah, man. Yeah, apparently so. I think somebody felt, it's funny, we brought a lot of ideas for a cover to the label, and some of the ideas that we did bring for the art people, some of them stuck. In the candy corn thing, maybe from, people are always inspired by music. They want to, if they're an art person, they're working on the record, they want to hear what the record is, and I appreciate that. So they want to be inspired and utilize ideas. I go, why not candy corn on the cover? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's cool. Now it is a thing. It marries the song. It has the album. Like I said, when I see Candy Corn to this day, I think of Sponge. And again, the songs that a lot of my listeners who are younger and only get access to the 90s as into what's brought up to them, songs like Plowed and songs like Molly, those are definitely ones. I was just telling somebody the other day, I was like, oh, I'm so excited I get to have Vinnie from Sponge on the show, and we immediately put on Molly, and we were dancing around the living room, 16 can, I mean, just, you can't not move to that song. So I know you've probably played it live 8 million times now, but it still brings me a lot of joy to hear that song.
I'm happy to say I can still sing it.
Good.
Good.
Yeah. And then after Rotting Piñata, we get to Wax Ecstatic, which is another big song of yours that came out, and that was the second album.
Oh yeah, man. Yeah. We had a great time making that record, and of course, when we're talking about the Bowie record, there's definitely like some kind of, there's a link between that love for the Bowie stuff on this record, man. It's on the Wax Ecstatic record. So yeah, it's like it was just a blast making that record too. Yeah, it's really, really good. And it also featured a song on the Chasing Amy soundtrack, that Have You Seen Mary, right? Oh yeah. What a beautiful inclusion for that tune. And the song just if I listen to that today, I just think about the beautiful piano intro that Chris Kodish did. We recorded the piano in Detroit, and just such a great piano intro, just a beautiful sounding room that we recorded it in. So it's just a topic that comes up a lot amongst my peers and I is just the soundtracks of the 90s, and how that was such a cool thing that just doesn't happen anymore. All the movies back then, it was like all the filmmakers were like, we got to compile together the best bands, the best rock bands for these soundtracks, and it just doesn't seem to be that much of a thing for movies anymore. But that was definitely the case, is you could count on going to see, whether it was, all the way back to the movie Singles, going to go see a movie, a Kevin Smith film where you're going to have great songs like yours on there. But it's things like the hidden track, the amazing film soundtracks, hopefully with people like your son who love the 90s, these things will come back again in their own unique way. I don't know, man, that Billie Eilish tune, she won a Grammy for the Barbie tune, and it's just like, Barbie didn't win a Grammy, but her song did. And, I'll tell you, man, we watched that movie. I don't know if you watched the movie, but I thought the song was absolutely stunning. Yeah, it is. Grammys, man. I'm just like, she is just wonderful, and the song is fantastic. So I go, there's one song that's in a movie that people just go, wow, that's
Yeah,
cool.
that's a great point. And I did see the movie, and I think that song is fantastic. It's a really, really excellent song. So,
Yeah.
so now over the past, a few decades after the 90s, and we get into kind of different lineup in the band, and you have a ton of other projects going on at the same time as Sponge. But one of the things that I never knew about ever until like yesterday was Spies for Darwin.
Oh, dig it, yeah.
I never knew that this supergroup existed in this very specific pocket of time. We've got you, we've got DeGarmo from Queensryche, we got two of the dudes from Alice in Chains, and you guys get together, and it seems like it was another one of those, like you said before, back in the days of Loud House, having fun, just having the time of your life. At least it looked like that everything that Spies for Darwin was for this release, Microfiche, which I cannot wait to talk about Microfiche on my channel, because I listened to it and I was like, this is great. What a hidden gem that I don't think enough people know about this project. But could you talk a little bit about that, how that came to be?
Back then, maybe this is in 2000 or something like that, or even before that, the boys had an idea, about it was Mike Inez and Sean Kinney getting together with DeGarmo. They were starting to demo stuff together. And Susan Silver, which was Alice in Chains' manager, and I was involved in some of the management today. And of course, she managed Soundgarden and Sponge for a minute. She said, well, send some stuff to Vin, send some CDs to Vin of what you're doing. And I vibed with it right away. I'm like, yeah, I can write for this, man. So I would record stuff, vocals, demo vocals at the house. And eventually I'd go out there and not demo, but keep her vocals out in Seattle to get together an EP. I think it was a great experience, and especially to spend time with the fellas and see how they work too,
Yeah.
Mike Inez play bass in the studio up close, and just watch what he does. And I just sit there. I can think of today. I go, where the hell was that coming from, man?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know what those guys in Seattle do, regarding bass, but I just go, it's mind numbing to see how they operate, to hear Sean Kinney like up close play drums, and he has a way he hits a drum. It's fantastic. And DeGarmo is just a gem. And yeah, it's just a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's a cool little album, and it's you can hear the touches of each of your other bands in there, but it's still uniquely its own thing. It really comes together in such a unique project. But it's got a great sound to it. It sounds good, and I just thought it was what a cool thing to discover. While I was digging into a lot of the stuff you've put out, you've just been a very prolific songwriter and musician. Not only Sponge and having released all the way to 9 albums, studio albums, and various different things along the way. But you have the Orbit Sons, and then you have all these projects. You've just never really stopped. You've never really slowed down. Is that what people in your life know about you? It's like, hey, Vinny, you can take a break, because it seems like you're just constantly just generating stuff.
But it's all stems around writing. Writing. I love to write, and I try to do it consistently, so I stay sharp with it.
Yeah.
So if I accumulate songs, or ideas, I think that's the way to go. At some point, somebody comes to me with a track, somebody in the band, the Sponge band, or some of the other stuff I'm doing, and they're like, "Will you write for this?" And 9 times out of 10, I got an idea already, to cue up and do something. So I just love to stay sharp at it. That's kind of what I like to do. I like to write. I'm not particularly gifted in any other department. I go, writing maybe is a thing that I've been fortunate, and because of writing, that has helped propel my career. So yeah, I just keep writing and keep cracking.
Do you still pick up the guitar when you have a song idea, or do you usually just kind of sit down and hub the melody and start writing?
I mean, like Fridays, if I'm in town, That's why I had to take a second look at what we scheduled. Because Friday, like around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, man, I'm sitting writing some stuff. If I'm in town, sit down, I'll write some stuff, and then I'll go have drinks with my friends,
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I do. So I had to delay the drinks with the friends a little bit, man.
Well, we could have drank on Waterproof Records, Vinny. We could have drank.
We are. Cheers. You know what I mean? Happy hour, it's like I can't stall on that thing. But, it's always something to look forward to. One of my favorite poets is Jim Harrison. He's, from what I've understood, a Michigan guy. And folks can look him up, And I read about him in a newspaper years ago. And he's like, when he gets done working like that, he has 3 vodkas, and it's probably 3 doubles, but he doesn't want to go beyond that because it doesn't want to cloud up his head. And I go,
right.
That sounds good to me, man. So I sit down and I get inspiration from folks like that. And I go, we all love to drink. Don't get carried away. But
Right.
At the end of the writing session, it's always nice to get a reward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a great song.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm hoping that Sponge is going to come out to the West Coast and play near LA again, and then maybe I can share a drink with you after I get off stage, and we can raise a glass and celebrate.
That's always a blast. But I'm not drinking at the gigs anymore.
You don't drink at the gigs anymore.
And it's like, I used to drink before, during, and after, but it's just, I'm not getting any younger. So I just go,
I understand that.
God, man, I just go, I got it. Maybe after the end of a tour, end of a run of dates, if you're going to be out there, let's see, we're out west in April. I think we end in just outside of Phoenix, which is Glendale, Arizona, around April 20th or something like that. I might have a drink then.
There, when you're done. I get it. I'm not in a band as well established and loved as Sponge, but during the pandemic I started a 90s cover band with some of my buddies, and so we play a ton of 90s songs, and you'll get a kick out of our band name. Our band name is Temple of the Dads.
Temple of the Dads.
Temple of the Dads.
Everybody's got kids, huh?
Yep. We all have kids. All 4 of us have kids at various stages. Some fully grown, some still little. But yeah, with the drinking thing, we'll go play a show. And I remember for the first few, people buy you stuff when you're on stage to get you a drink, and we'd be 2-3 songs in and I'd be like, uh-oh. I'd be like, I'm not going to be able to perform very well. So now I make myself, I've got to get through at least like 75% of the whole set before I'll even touch anything. Because it does get harder. I'm not getting any younger either. And, but I'm a dad out there trying to rock.
It's a great thing.
It is. I love it. It's been so fun. I've been a music lover since I was a kid. I grew up also in a house. That Beatles that you see behind me was my mom's. And so it's the original when she was a girl, and she gave it to me. And so I grew up in a house with a lot of music playing, and I've always been such a music lover, but this new chapter of my life where I get the chance to, sit down with people like you and have them on this podcast and make videos about music and art. It has been so fulfilling because it's something that I think I lost sight of through life, through my 20s and 30s and other pursuits and job responsibilities and things, and never really letting go of music. But it's such a rewarding thing to have in my life again. And I feel very fortunate. Yeah.
Oh, without a doubt. And the fact that you're able to get out there and rock. And I'm sure the kids come and see you guys rock?
They haven't yet because I haven't had a venue that they can get into, but I'm working on it. I think I really, really want my teenage son to come out and see his dad. He does write music, but it's interesting. This is the path of a parent, right? As you see them discover their own thing. He early on, because he loved video games, got into kind of the game soundtracks and a lot of that digital synth stuff. And so he composes things in his room that I don't even understand. I think it's wonderful, but I'm lost because I'm a rock guy. But I love seeing his passion for arrangement. He'll bring me in there and be like, "Dad, check this out," And so he has that same drive in him too, which has been great to see.
That could serve him very well, man.
I think so too.
Very, very well. That's a great thing.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to before I had to let you go, because I know you got things to do. You got friends to get together with and an evening ahead. But I was going to say, I believe you are friends with Brian Vander Ark, correct? He came on this show. You guys know each other. Another Michigan guy.
We do gigs with him, man. And he drives me crazy because he's taller than me. He sings better than me. He's better looking than me. And I tell him that. I go, "You're just too good. Get out of here."
Yeah. He's
I love
a
that guy. He's a
yeah.
sweet- I love him, man.
Yeah.
I love him. We did a charity thing not too long ago, about a year ago in my hometown. And, he is just so cool, man. He's so, he's so chill. He comes in, man. He knows he's cool. He's got his guitar, gets up on a microphone, and he sings a bunch of tunes, man. And then he wants to destroy us even further, right? By just doing an a cappella version of The Freshman.
Oh.
He gets done doing that, and everybody's in tears.
Everybody's in tears.
I'm going, dude, that's the new national anthem right there, buddy. It's like, what are you doing? Like, you got to push down any further.
Oh.
I just sing Plowed. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just sang The Freshman a cappella. Destroyed me, man. It was fantastic.
That's great. Yeah, he was such a great guest, and so I'm happy that you guys know each other. He was on the show just probably last fall, and then if I read correctly, I saw that you did a late night TV performance. Might have been Conan in the '90s, and did you have Kay Hanley from Letters to Cleo guest with you on that song? Is that correct?
Absolutely. And just to clear the air, there was no romantic involvement that brought that, onto that show. People ask me that. They go, "You guys hanging out?" I go, "What do you mean hanging out? What does hanging out mean?" But yeah, she did fantastic. I love that band. I think they're still active. They're out there doing gigs.
They are. She came on the show also. I wanted to share that, I got a chance to go see Letters to Cleo play. And she came on the show in its earliest days. She was so gracious. I got a chance to meet her. I asked her, and she's like, "Sure." She comes on the show. It's just a baby show. I haven't really gotten much off the ground. So she was being so nice to come on. But she's wonderful. She was so kind and gracious and just such a great talent and voice. And when I went and saw them play, they rocked it. They played the Troubadour, and it was an awesome show.
What a great band. And they were always so cool to be out on the road with, man. Just people to partner up with and get out there and make music. That is, you couldn't ask for anything more, really, because the opposite is some bands being a pain in the ass, which is like, who wants that?
Yeah. Do you have, before I let you go, do you have a moment in your long career in music that really sticks out to you as a memorable moment? Could it be, hearing your song on the radio for the first time, or, you're now in rotation on MTV, or, have your video going? Was there a moment where it just kind of, you stopped and you let it all soak in a little bit, and you remember that at all?
Oh, man, that's the key right there. Sitting and soaking it in, man. I've always been very I go, shit, I'm only as good as my last gig. I'm only as good as my last song. I go to sit, and it's almost like sitting on your laurels or something. I just go, I don't even know. It's just such a weird thing. I almost think of that more now.
Yeah.
When somebody comes up to me and tells me at a gig, like, what the first record meant to them, or what certain songs mean to them, and they come up to us and they're very honest and very emotional, and it could be something that pulled them through an enormously difficult time, and I go, my music did that?
Yeah.
That blows my mind, and I'm just blown away and truly humbled by being able to make music that has some kind of impact like that. The radio stuff, the accomplishments, the tours, everybody talks about Tiger Stadium with Alice in Chains,
Right.
Run backwards back then. And I just go, I'm looking out for myself back then, and so I go, what was I thinking back then? But these days I'm looking at just these moments that we've accomplish things. Like we were asked to play the Gathering with ICP last year. You know,
Right.
let me tell you, I know Violent J. He's a great guy. ICP has always been very cool to us, but I go, what are the fans going to do? You know,
Right.
and I'm talking like it was a great gig, and we're standing up there going, we finally made it to a point where people are just like, you know what? I might not know Sponge, but these guys are up on that deck and they're not phoning it in and they're for real.
Yeah.
And I just go, if we can get through something like that, I go, to me, that's like a badge I'll wear, man, you know? And for people like Violent J, ICP, their crew, their people treating us so cool, I go, you know what? We're doing something right, and let's continue doing that. So those moments to me happen more so now than back then, because back then you're just like, I don't know what the hell's going on back then, man. You know, I really don't know. You're looking for the next party, you're looking for the next hangout, you're just trying to freak out and have fun. And
Yeah.
it's a good thing. But now I think maybe I stop for a second and I look, and that's to me the stuff that happens now.
Well, that's a good closing thought for everybody who listens to this show. My audience, remember, stop and appreciate the things. You know, life moves fast, and it's important to take stock of what's around you, the loved ones, the great memories, and the good times, because we can get into that grind of just going one thing after the next and not stopping and really appreciating everything. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you more than anything else for coming on Waterproof Records. You know, if listener, go and stream all the albums, go listen to the entire catalog. And look for, you know, Sponge coming to town. It's spongetheband.com is the site, I believe.
Yep, that's still the website. And of course, if you go to Facebook, it's Sponge Rocks.
Sponge rocks. I love it. I love it. So make sure you go check out all these, all the classic songs and the new stuff that got, like you said, 30th anniversary collection of stuff coming out. Make sure to buy a bag of candy corn and sit down and eat it and listen to Sponge. And yeah, we just want to support you. So thank you again for coming on today. I really, really appreciate it. This has been a great hang, and I do hope that I can come out and see you play. And we'll toast a glass of water when I see you on the West Coast instead.
Sure. In Glendale out in Arizona at the end of the tour, April 20th. I think it's April 20th. So
all right. Well, I'll keep an eye out. It's close enough that I could possibly make it. So we'll see what happens. But thank you again, Vinnie Dombroski. Thank you for all the time that you spent with me here today. It was a privilege and an honor to have you come on the show. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Jacob. I had a great time. Thank you.
Awesome.
Cheers.
What a great guest. What a really nice, likable guy. I had such a good time just hearing about his journey and his stories, his love of music. You can tell just how much it means to him, you know, just as we got into those conversations about Bowie and Iggy Pop and Lou Reed and just the Detroit music scene and just how he would dig in deeper, and the William Burroughs. And it was just such a cool thing to see his perspective, and then just to see how grateful he's become in the more recent years about his success and his journey, and just the people that have come up to him after shows and said how much that song meant to them, or how much they really loved that album, or whatever it was. But just so kind and gracious to come on the show today, and I was honored to have him here. And I really do hope I get a chance to see him. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it to Arizona, but I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that Sponge is coming closer to Los Angeles. So I'll be keeping an eye out for that. But at least I did get to see him at Pappy and Harriet's, so that was cool. But thank you again for joining me today on Waterproof Records. This has been such a fun conversation, and I really enjoyed it. And I can't do this show without you. So make sure you're sharing, you're subscribing, you're doing all the things. This is that part of the show where I have to say, please, 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 please help this show. Can't speak at all right now. Please help this show be a success. I need you. I need it to grow, because the more it grows, the more I can do. I could do, more guests on the show. I could, finally get into a place where I could do this more consistently and deliver more content for you guys. And we could grow this to a place where maybe one day there could be like a Waterproof Records on the road, and I could come to a town, or I could be, on a tour, and there'd be like we talk with bands. And anyway, I have a lot of ideas and visions for what I would like to see happen with the show over time, but I can't do it without you. So thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate you. I'm super grateful. Thank you to everybody who's been with me since the beginning. And if you're just now joining me, go back. There's a lot of episodes to check out before this one. So once again, check out districtkid.com/VIP/waterproof, and we'll see you next time on the show. Goodbye.
Things are gonna change. I can feel it.
If this gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna
Waterproof